Now it's cooking. There we go. All right. Okay, awesome. It looks like we're live.
Hello, everyone.
Yay! Okay. So, Lisa, I'm so glad you're here. And your interview is scheduled today for the summit. And we had such a good time, even with all the crazy internet interruptions where my internet died in the middle. But we're we can do hard things, and you went ahead and edited that video for me, so it all worked out. I'm so excited for your message to get out to people
Mm,
because uh, this is so important. We have been stuck in ways of working with our dogs when they get into trouble, our animals, all of our animals.
right.
When they get into trouble, we think that there's only this one way that we have to support them, but it
Mm,
could very well be something that simply doesn't work. And yet we get frustrated because we don't know what else to do. And that's why I am so excited for you to share your message with
mm,
people because you have such a beautiful way of working with animals. So I'm going to let you
yeah.
take over for a minute and
Sure.
talk about, what it is that you do with animals and how you how you grew from working with animals in one very specific way into expanding into this beautiful, energetic way of
Yeah.
connecting with animals and supporting them. So
Oh,
go
yeah,
ahead.
sure. Thank you so much, Marilyn. I'm so happy to be here. And hello to everyone that's listening or catching the replay. So I'm based in Ireland, and what I started to do in life was I started to meditate and really deep into my intuition. And I also have a science background as well. So I kind of have the left side and the right side. But when I started to meditate, I really started to connect in with the animals on a much more intuitive level. So I started to communicate with them and hear their problems, hear their thoughts, that kind of work. And as I was communicating with the animals, I was working with a lot of seriously troubled dogs and other animals as well. I worked a lot with charities who couldn't rehome some of the more unbalanced dogs. So they would get me in to heal them. And that really cut my teeth, I'd say, in an amazing way to have great compassion for animals and dogs that are deeply sensitive. And what I was finding that communicating with them and doing energy healing with them wasn't enough. I needed to bring in something more. I needed to work more with botanicals. So is that when I could understand what problem they have, when they share their imbalances, I can then tailor the botanicals to them. But then, as you do, you always get harder and harder cases. The universe never lets you rest. You always have to consistently up your game. So as the cases got trickier, I got studying and I started to incorporate five elements Chinese medicine into my work as well. So we discussed this in more detail in the recording we did that's going out today, Marilyn. But in a nutshell, what it teaches you is that one sensitive dog may have completely different needs in compared to the next sensitive dog. So there's basically five types in the five element structure. And when we view the dogs from this lens, it gives us not only greater compassion, but greater tools on how to actually approach them. So, say, for example, a water element type, they're very, very nervous animals. They're driven by fear. You don't want to corner them, because they're the animals that could, be quite unpredictable. And then you get the other animals that might be quite barky and they're wood and they like to have freedom. They don't like to be blocked. They like to keep moving. They like adventures. So they can get kind of frustrated snappy, whereas the waters can get fearful snappy or whatever.
Mhm.
So that just gives you a little taster into kind of how you can look at them as an individual. All right. And then when we've looked at them as an individual, then the next layer that I love to do is ask the animal then, Well, what specific botanicals do you need to heal? So this was the next layer in my healing journey. It was like not only give them botanicals, but bring in the principles of zoopharmacognosy, which is a scientific term that's very fancy. And it just basically means animals that know how to self-medicate.
Mm,
So this is where they'll select the grasses they need to eat because they have a digestive upset. Maybe this could be why your dog insists on drinking the rainwater rather than the water on the bowl in the kitchen because the rainwater has probiotics and lots of nutrients in it. And the animal knows that that's going to help their digestive function better. It's why they might eat clay because the clay suits the digestive system and things like that. So animals have that ability. And when I work with them, I work with them remotely through their photo and they tell me exactly what flower essences they want to work with, what essential oils, what food therapy they need, remedies. I mean, it goes on and on and on, herbs, everything like that. So it's that when we're working with the animal in this intuitive way, in this finite way, often, Marilyn, I can get results for imbalanced animals mentally, emotionally, physically, or spiritually that other people haven't got results with before. And that's because you turn the choice around to the animal and you really understand who they are and what their individual needs are.
yeah, and this is such a reversal in approach for,
Mm.
you know, what we've always been taught. Like we need to tell the animal what they need. We kind of disempower them
Yeah.
from making those choices about their own welfare. And, you know, the planet has given us so many resources. Like you say, you know, you use the botanicals and the dogs go out and eat grass. And, you know, I can remember a time when people would say, how can I stop my dog from eating grass? Or how can I
Mm.
stop my dog from drinking water from puddles? You know, what you just mentioned, I see my own dogs go out this time of year, spring, when the grass is so fresh. And even before they, you know, relieve themselves and pee and poop, they will go and grab a mouthful of grass.
Yeah.
So they just know. So, you know, I love this whole idea of of us as humans joining the animals in their connection to nature because the animals have it. We're the ones who've kind of moved away from it, stepped away from that connection with, you know, what the gives us and what our planet has to offer to us. And so, you know, what you're describing is helping us to get back in connection with them. Um, and so maybe, Lisa, I think it might be helpful to some people if you could talk a little bit about working remotely, because this is something that most people, I think, find a little difficult to understand because we're so, you know, focused on, you know, what we evidence that we can see and hear and touch. And, you know, we expect evidence to be visual to us, because I do remote work also. And it's a question of, you know, when you experience it, then you become a believer. So maybe you can, you know, talk a little bit about how remote work works for the animals.
Sure. Um, I'd say a good way to start is that when all of us humans are born as babies, we're highly telepathic. Okay, because the little babas, they don't have the ability to speak with the language the way we do, but they're able to sense into things, feel into things. They're so open. And what happens then as humans is we start to learn how to speak. So those telepathic skills are not as needed as much. So it's almost like in most people, they kind of get a bit quieter, go asleep. Some people always keep them awake. But just like us, the animals are highly telepathic. And because they don't learn to speak and use a language that we use in that way, they stay awake and they're able to kind of communicate with one another on a much more intuitive level. And I believe like the approach I do for my remote work is that through my journey of meditation, I woke up something called a city, which is a latent gift, and we all have cities. They're all unique to everybody. And my city was being able to communicate, to tune into the radio station that the animals are already in. Okay, they're already, so this is why when you think, oh, I'm going to bring my cat to the vet now, and they're gone, right? Because they've picked it up. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what they do, you know.
Huh?
And the animals know when we're having a bad day. Like everybody knows, has, you know, any animal lover has some kind of anecdote where their animal just seemed to read them like a book.
Hmm.
Okay, so they have that ability. So they're just waiting for us to step forward and open ourselves up to the mystical, because the mystical is real. And when I work with the fluffs, when I'm working with their photograph, I can dial into their photograph and I can converse with them that way and ask them. Then the other thing that I can do when I work remotely with them is I work with a pendulum, and I ask the animal to take over control of the pendulum. And when they take over control of the pendulum, then they show me what botanicals and stuff as well, or we can really narrow it down that way. And how I know that works is because in zoopharmacognosy, the animal self-medicating, the general one that people use, they tend to just bring like a suitcase full of botanicals, go to the animal's home, and then start to offer. Okay, and wait for the hit, for the animal to really show an interest in one particular botanical. And it can be, you know, obviously they're really good at it in the sense if they know whatever the signs and symptoms are, they'll have an idea of what botanicals the animal will need, but they have to be there in person. Okay. And but when you do it remotely and you use the pendulum, instead of having a suitcase of botanicals, I'll send clients like two essential oils or three, and straight away, bang, the animal starts to work with them. There's no waiting around because there's that intuitive layer. It just cuts through all the stuff. And I really think, Marilyn, it's really an opportunity for us as a collective, as humanity, to really step up in 2025 when the energies are coming in so strong into the earth. The change is immense. We've got so much growing pains in every area of our lives right now as humans because spirit is breaking through. You know, the energies are breaking through. We have to sometimes fall apart and put ourselves together, back together in a completely new way. And I think it's a big invitation for all of us to start to step into the mystical and at least be open to it. And one way of doing that is allowing the animals to show you the way.
Yeah. That's such a comforting thought that you just expressed that, we have to fall apart so that we can put ourselves back together again in a
Yeah,
better way. That is comforting, yes, because there is a lot of turmoil on our
yeah,
planet right now. Um, but it can be, as you said, growing pains.
yeah,
And so that is a comforting thought.
yeah,
Um, yes, the pendulum is a very powerful tool because it always tells the truth, doesn't it? It
yeah,
just picks up what it just tells you what the energy is.
yeah,
And it's not there's no conditions or anything like that. It just tells you what the energy is. And I find it to be really helpful when I'm not sure what to do or when when I want to use, for example, an essential oil with an animal. And
mm,
I will just ask, is the energy of this oil compatible right now with the energy of this animal? And it could change, tomorrow it could be different. But what does this animal need right now? So, yeah, and anybody can do that because it's not, anybody can use a pendulum, but you have to be able to just let the pendulum do its work,
yeah. Not interfere with it with your
not
ego, I
interfere with
suppose.
it,
Yeah, yeah,
or be attached to a certain answer. Like I want
yeah,
it to be this answer, so we sort of interfere, we interrupt with that natural energy flow. So we have to be unattached to it. So yeah, it's so wonderful. What I want to keep this live stream. short enough so people will jump in and watch it and not take away from the time that they can spend watching your amazing interview because there's so much there. Even just your description of the difference between a water element
Mm.
animal and a wood element, and the difference between how they approach uh, whatever condition is confronting them in
Yeah.
their day. So that was just very enlightening to me, and it inspired me to do more work into the elements. I want to really
Ah,
learn more about them. So
good.
yeah, so that was my inspiration. That was my takeaway from your talk. So before we wrap this up, Lisa, is there anything, any like really words of advice that you want to leave folks with?
Mm. Yeah, there's just something else I want to touch on, which is if your animal friend is very out of balance and you have got this sensitive dog in your life, I also invite people to maybe reflect upon, is there a mirror going on between you and the animal? Are they trying to show you blind spots within yourself? And we go into this in the talk as well, Marilyn. But I
Mhm.
think that can be another way of looking at things that's very not done very often either. And when we listen to them in that way, when the animals we receive their messages, they can stop shouting at us and become a lot calmer.
Yeah.
So that can, it's another way of them healing you.
Yes, yes, and we'll just emphasize the title of your talk is Your Animal Healing You. So
Yeah.
that piece of it is so important. And I know I have a dog that typically shouts at me. And if I simply just say, okay, I hear you, and give him what he needs at the moment, I happen to know what he needs, and give it to him at that moment, he just settles right down. He's completely relaxed. No
Oh.
more shouting.
Yeah,
All done.
that's it. Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, and just and that healing part in ourselves too is something that we can understand if we just stop resisting our animals and thinking they have to do it the way everybody says they have to do it.
Mm.
And, what everybody says may not necessarily be what your animal needs at that moment. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's part of our own self-healing to just open up and be aware and listen and then act on what our animals are saying to us. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you for joining me for this live stream. And this is going to stay posted in the group. And I know that you're going to also post it in your group so that your audience will have a chance to listen to this too and jump in and listen to the interview. If there's anybody watching this who is not registered yet, it is not too late. You can still register and you can watch Lisa's interview today. It is not to be missed. So, okay. So thank you so much. And um, I'm going to jump off right now and end our call. So I want to thank you so much for joining
Thank
me
you.
today.
Pleasure.
And I'll send you the YouTube link and remember to send me what we talked about earlier. And
Okay,
yeah, and I'll get that added on to your information. So,
great.
okay, everybody.
Take
Thank you so
care.
much. Bye,
Bye-bye.
Lisa. Thank you.
Pleasure.